over at BangTheBook.com. We are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Obviously, no NBA going on right now, but Admir Algic did a great job previewing the All-Star Game, the dunk contest, the three-point contest, and the skills challenge over there at Bang the Book. We've got daily college basketball picks from Kyle Hunter, daily NHL picks from Parker Michaels. Alan Moody does college basketball and NBA stuff regularly for us. Got previews of the 2 NASCAR events this weekend, the Xfinity Series, and, of course, the Daytona 500. We've got Christian's UFC preview, which is outstanding as usual. We got a lot of stuff going on over there, so please make sure you head on over there and check that out. As you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. Finally, before I play this segment with Christian, Monday, I'm bringing back the Monday mailbag. That will be the first segment on Monday's show. Then we'll do the Handicapping the Hardwood segment with Kyle Hunter. If you've got questions about anything, except for my sex life or politics, send them to me on Twitter at Skating Tripods, or you can email me, adam@bangthebook.com. We'll answer all of your sports betting questions. If you've got music questions, beer questions, bourbon questions, I don't really care. As long as it's something I can talk about here on the show, something I feel comfortable with talking about. So we'll bring back the Monday mailbag here. That's what we'll do on these Monday segments. And if I don't get questions, then I'll probably just talk Major League Baseball or something like that. But if you've got questions about the business, about college basketball futures, about really anything here that we talk about on the show or something that you've had a question about, at Skating Tripods on Twitter, adam@bangthebook.com via email. Happy to answer those for you. And, of course, a lot of times what I do is I wind up crowdsourcing opinions on those questions as we go throughout the week. So it gives me some good talking points with my guests and expert handicappers here on the show as well. So really like that Monday mailbag segment. It is something that I do when it comes to my Bettors Box on Mondays during the baseball season as well. So if you've got questions, again, at Skating Tripods on Twitter or adam@bangthebook.com via email. We got one more guest, one more segment for this week on Bang the Book Radio. That is Kyle Hunter with our Handicapping the Hardwood segment. Kyle, how's it going today, man?
Going all right. Friday, busy day here. Always Friday nights and Saturday mornings with the big Saturday college basketball slate, but not too many more of those left here in the regular season. So try to make the most of it, and always look forward to talking here on Handicapping the Hardwood.
Well, and I did a free pick video over on our Bang the Book YouTube page looking at the Ivy League games, calling it very creatively my Frivy League free picks. So head on over to our Bang the Book YouTube, check that out, because I know we don't talk much Ivy League here on Handicapping the Hardwood or across the board on Bang the Book Radio. But let's go ahead and dive right in here. And we've kind of been saving these conferences for last. The conferences we haven't talked about yet in depth here on the show, the Big South, the MEAC, and the Southland. As far as I know, I think we hit everything else. So today I guess we haven't hit the America East yet. So we'll have to find a way to work that one in here as well. But we're going to talk Big South today. And, again, this is one of those conferences, Kyle, that up until this year was not regularly lined in the regular season and certainly not in conference play.
Yeah, and for that reason, I would say I still know less about these teams than what I do about a lot of the other ones, just because, I didn't pay as much attention to them until this year. And, still trying to figure out the differences in these teams and the special things about, what they do different from some of the other conferences. Usually you have some conference themes. We've talked about, inefficiencies on offense and the SWAC. Talk about, the Big Sky being all offense, things like that. I think the Big South is, the thing that stands out to me about it is there's a lot of pace wars here. We like to talk about pace wars, and if you look at teams like Hampton, Winthrop, they really like to run. You've got some of the better teams in this conference actually play a little bit slower. Bradford usually slows the game down. Campbell actually slowing the game down this year, which surprises me a little bit with Chris Clemens being their star. And then you got some of the bad teams, especially UNC Asheville. I mean, I think they've just decided to slow the game down because, they're getting beat every single game. So slow the game down as much as you can to at least have a chance. But, this is a conference that when you look down the line, there's nothing really that stands out as far as tons of turnovers, like there was in the SWAC, or great shooting percentages like you have in Big Sky or Summit League. But, it's a conference that's pretty weak. I looked at how they've done in the non-conference. They're 115 and 144 ATS. That's only 44.4% since 2010. So this is certainly a weak conference. And I would say that the big thing that stands out to me also is that most teams in this league are not balanced. They're either good on offense or they're good on defense. The reason that Radford is clearly a top team in the league is because they have balance both on offense and defense.
When you look at Radford, of course, making it into the big dance last year, wound up being a 16 seed, did lose in that round of 64, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they did win one of the play-in games, so they were able to,
yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did. Okay, so, Mike Jones's team, obviously, as you mentioned, at the top of the heap here, and, what's so interesting about some of these teams is that, I remember Winthrop from several years ago. I mean, this has obviously changed, but that used to be a team that would regularly play games in the 50s. I mean, they were one of the slowest, if not the slowest teams in college basketball. And you get some of these new head coaches in there, some of these assistants from major programs and whatnot, and they wind up doing a complete overhaul of these programs, both in terms of talent, fit, scheme, tempo, and it takes a long time when you're somebody in the Big South to really, kind of find that comfort zone and that consistency.
Yeah, I remember Winthrop had, this has been quite a while now, but when Greg Marshall was the coach at Winthrop, they played pretty slowly, and they had Randy Peel, and then you go over to Pat Kelsey. But, they've been top 50 in tempo here the last few seasons. But like you said, I mean, you can see some pretty big changes, and depending on who the coach is and what kind of roster they have. I always think that the best coaches adapt to their talent. I don't really like a coach who says we're going to play this way no matter what. I like coaches to see what kind of talent they have. Should we run? Should we slow things down because we have, weak guards and a good front court? Then, adapt and play it that way. But I think the best coaches adapt to the players that they have. I think this conference and the Big South, you have quite a few teams who are really weak on defense. I would say that this is more of an offensive conference if you had to lean one way or the other. But, again, it's a weak conference, and I wouldn't expect that anybody here would have much of a chance other than Radford if they got into the big dance of even scaring anybody.
All right, so Radford, clearly the top team for you, and they do have a couple of very nice wins this year. Beat Notre Dame, beat Texas, played a good non-conference schedule. So on down from the Highlanders, how do you look at the rest of the Big South? How do you stack these teams up?
Yeah, I took Radford first, obviously, and then Winthrop would be my second choice. I think they're really well coached, and, this is a Winthrop team that has been, good for many years in a row here. I would take Campbell third with the star and Chris Clemens. I think he can carry them in a one-game spot, certainly. They're a team that's capable of winning the conference tournament because they have him. And then after that, I would go Charleston Southern, Presbyterian, Gardner-Webb, Hampton, High Point, Longwood. I mean, go down to the last two, really bad last two. USC Upstate, UNC Asheville, just very weak teams there at the bottom. So, you get a couple easier wins here in this conference because they certainly lack depth.
Well, and you look at UNC Asheville here, double-digit conference wins every year, at least dating back to 2008 that I'm looking at here. They aren't even going to get double-digit wins, period, this year. 4-22, 2-10 in conference play. They're in the bottom of the nation in just about almost every statistical category except for free throw percentage. The coaching change, obviously a big thing with Nicholas McDevitt going to Middle Tennessee. You had a good call in your article on Middle Tennessee yesterday, and in fact, they're getting better here as conference play goes along. But, man, is it just, did UNC Asheville lose basically everybody plus their head coach?
Yeah, you wonder if, McDevitt kind of got out of there at the right time. I mean, I'm not certainly accusing him of anything. I would take the Middle Tennessee job over UNC Asheville also. But, look at UNC Asheville this year, the least experienced team in the country. So definitely they lost everybody. Really, really tough job here for Mike Morrell in his first year. I don't think we should make anything of, what kind of coach he is based on this team. We'll see what they do next season. And, I really can't blame them for trying to slow the game down and hope that it would work. They've been at least more competitive the last few games. They won both times here against USC Upstate, and had an overtime loss at Gardner-Webb. So I think, he's trying to do the best he can. No experience. This UNC Asheville team had been very good with a lot of the same core the last few seasons. They had been winning with a lot of the same guys, and now those guys are gone. I believe they might have started all seniors last year. So definitely a difficult job for him.
All right, so we transition away from the Big South here, and we'll have to decide which conference we want to talk about on Monday, if we want to do America East, if we want to do MEAC, if we want to do Southland. Obviously not a whole lot of great options left for us to talk about. But, with the conference tournaments coming up, with these conferences lined on a regular basis, I think we're about the only show I've seen that tackles leagues like this. So very proud of being able to do that here on Bang the Book Radio. But we'll look at more of the bigger picture here. Look at some follow and fade teams here. The follow team coming from the Missouri Valley.
Yeah, Valparaiso. This is one that I missed the other day in the College Basketball Daily article. It's it's done really well so far this year. Really been happy with how it's turned out thus far. Still a lot of season left to go, and I hope that we can keep a solid profit for everybody here. I know that's helped a lot of people, and that's certainly the goal for Bang the Book, and then also for myself. With Fazekas coming back, though, I took Valparaiso in his first game back the other day against Indiana State. They ended up losing that game in overtime. I think maybe I was just a little bit early on that one because, it was his first game back. He didn't do much in that game, but Fazekas is their best player, especially best scorer. Gives them that long-range shooter that they really need. Valpo is a team that plays aggressively, plays really good defense. I certainly would think that he would help them quite a bit because they have the ability to win games with their offense a little bit more instead of just being totally defensive. In MVC this year, it's really pretty wide open. So I think that Valpo is a team that I'd be looking to back. I think the odds makers will be a little bit too low on them right now.
Well, and that's a situation, too, where I believe he was injured in the Southern Illinois game. I could be wrong on that, but they started off very well in conference play, started off 4-0, and we're 5-1 after a win over Northern Iowa. And then the loss of Fazekas really started to creep in for them. Very, very good, surprising win on the road at Illinois State by 16. But outside of that, hadn't really played particularly well. Did lose some close games in there, too. The overtime loss to Missouri State, close loss to Loyola Chicago the second time they played them. So you talk about getting a star player back, he's going to help you in those close games, too.
Yeah, definitely. They've played a lot of close games, and, they still have that solid defense. Now they just have a better scorer back. And like I said, I don't think there's really any teams in the MVC. Loyola is the best team in the league, but they haven't really put it all together here. I don't think there's many teams in this league that can run away and hide. So Valpo is going to be in a lot more close games. And I think that, as the odds makers are pretty low on them now, I think they'll have some more value.
All right, so we look at a fade team here, and for this one, we go to the Summit League.
Yeah, I'm going to say this is more of a near-term fade. Nebraska-Omaha. They lost the overtime win at South Dakota, and then the massive comeback win last night at South Dakota State. That Thursday night buzzer beater there, I know that I read a couple articles about that one, that Omaha was their best win in program history. They've put a lot into the last couple games. Give them credit. They're a solid team, really good on offense. They're at least somewhat better on defense than what they have been in past years. I think it's just a tough spot for them coming off the overtime win at South Dakota, then the huge comeback over South Dakota State. I think we got some letdown spots coming, at least at some point. When is that coming? I would not want to back Omaha in the next couple of games. So, to me, this is a good fade spot here in the near term.
Well, in Fort Wayne, a team that I mentioned yesterday in my Thursday 3-pack video over on our Bang the Book YouTube page, they won and covered comfortably on the road at Denver, scored 94 points, 1.323 points per possession. So Fort Wayne is going to score here with Nebraska-Omaha in that game coming up on Saturday. It is a home game for Nebraska-Omaha, but situational standpoint, as you mentioned, very, very tough spot there for the Mavericks. Let's talk about Conference USA for a second. We talked about this yesterday on the show with Brad Powers, and I was looking at it and saying, as I'm looking at the schedule, Conference USA's regular season wraps up on Saturday, and the conference tournament is a month away. And I'm glad that you're going to set the record straight here for us today, because I'll admit I didn't look into this, and I should have, and I apologize to our listeners, but Conference USA's regular season is not over, and things are about to get very interesting.
Yeah, Conference USA decided to do a different thing with scheduling this year, and we're going to find out how it works out, because to be totally honest with you, it's something totally different than anybody else has done. They're going to reseed teams for the last 4 games of the regular season, put them in pods, create like a bracket matrix type thing. The schedule's being released Saturday night. Obviously, they're calling it innovative and forward-thinking. I'm curious to see how it works out. I think there's going to be some really interesting scheduling spots, because our team's going to be playing each other a third time. Our team's going to be playing, close together again. They did this whole, 5 games in 9 days or 5 games in 10 days for a while. They've had the most interesting spots in college basketball so far this year with their strange scheduling. Now they're going to try to reseed these teams for the last few regular season games, and then based on how those go, teams are going to be seeded for the conference tournament. So they're calling it Conference USA bonus play. I'm curious to see how it goes. A little bit of an unknown, but wanted to point that out and say that I think there could be some unique scheduling spots here in the next couple weeks in Conference USA.
Man, if you think it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season, just think of how hard it's got to be to beat a team 4 times during the season, right?
Right, yeah.
It's strange to me, because, I guess, and I always talk about this when it comes to college football. If you're a middling, not low major, but a middling group of 5 team, or even a middling Power 5 team, I've always encouraged those teams to do something outside of the box, whether you go with the air raid or you go to the triple option or something different like that. Just change the status quo, change it up, and try to give yourself some sort of competitive advantage. If Conference USA wants to be the guinea pig for this, I think it's a competent enough league that it should be pretty interesting to follow.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to following it. I can't say that I know whether it'll be good to, back underdogs or favorites or road teams or home teams based on this difference. I don't think anybody would know the answer to that. But, I think it could create some interesting spots, as we've talked about before, when everybody does the whole, like Adam just alluded to, you can't beat a team 3 times, you can't beat a team 4 times, that type of thing. It just depends on if you're better than them. So don't let somebody tell you that, you can't beat a team a 3rd time because you've beaten them twice by 20 points. That's certainly one of the craziest things that anybody could say. Now, obviously, if you pull an upset twice and the other team's better than you, then it could be tough to beat them a 3rd time. But I think that's just because the other team's, better than you, not really because it's hard to beat them a 3rd time. But, Conference USA is trying something different. Like you said, it's not a major conference. I would think this was odd if, the Big Ten or the SEC or somebody came up with this. But Conference USA makes sense to do something different. They put some teams in some really bad spots this year, which, hey, it's nice for us because we get some good betting spots. But, we'll see what happens here with this bonus play, and we'll see how teams take it. I'm curious to see if the teams in Conference USA are excited about it, or if they, don't seem to care for it too much.
Well, and obviously this is purely hypothetical since this schedule doesn't come out until Saturday. However, we've talked about this before with Conference USA. This league is really spread out. You go all the way out to Norfolk, Virginia. You go all the way west to El Paso. What if you play a Thursday, Saturday road swing and you play at UTSA and then at Old Dominion? Or you play at North Texas and then at FIU or something crazy like that. There could be some significant travel scheduling spots that we can look to take advantage of here. And also, with this being new and all of us feeling out this process, So are the odds makers. So how much do you incorporate a UTSA Old Dominion road back-to-back? Or, playing FIU and then going and playing UTEP, in an altitude game. So you go from the highest tempo team in the conference and one of the highest in the country to playing in altitude, both on the road. I'm really curious to see how this is structured, how it's accounted for, and what opportunities we get to take advantage of.
Yeah, I think home court advantage could be worth more here in these last few games in Conference USA than what it usually is. And we've talked about how, in general, home court advantage is probably a little bit overvalued. But as you said, depending on what the spot's set up as. Now, if they do a good job scheduling people and they don't have any of those crazy spots, then I might have to change my mind on that. But I imagine there's going to be some difficult road trips here because, like you said, it's not just one team that's pretty far away. I mean, there's several teams that are not very close at all to each other. So you got the Florida teams that aren't at all close to a place like UTEP. You've got, Old Dominion and Charlotte not very close to the rest of the teams either. So, and Western Kentucky really. So, you've got a lot of teams here to where if you play a back-to-back on the road against, any number of those teams, you could be in a pretty difficult spot. So certainly something that we'll want to keep an eye on here the next couple of weeks.
And, of course, Marshall a hike up there in Huntington, West Virginia as well. So definitely going to keep a close eye on this. I'm sure it's something we'll talk about more on these Handicapping the Hardwood segments. But as we transition into our games for this weekend, we're actually going to start with Conference USA with a look at North Texas on the road in Miami to take on FIU.
Yeah, North Texas, I think their weak non-conference schedule's caught up to them here. This is a team that I don't remember, at one point they were 15-1 or 13-1 or something like that. They only lost the one game, and that was against Oklahoma. And now they've lost, 3 of their last 5 games. They've lost 2 in a row. They lost at home to Western Kentucky, certainly nothing to be embarrassed about there. And then they lost on the road at Florida Atlantic by 10 points. That is a bad loss. They should win a game like that. I think it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back here. FIU plays at the fastest tempo of anybody in the country. On offense, using less than 14 seconds of the shot clock. So they are playing really fast. FIU, though, is not very good on offense as far as efficiency. They can score a lot of points, but they're not very efficient. North Texas is going to try to slow this game down. I'm confident of that. I don't think Grant McCaslin will let this game get to a 80-possession game like FIU would like it to be. But what's that going to mean as far as the side? I would lean toward North Texas here. Like I said, I certainly think that it's a decent bounce-back spot for them. They're certainly a long ways from home, and it's the double. So, I'd have to get a good price. But I think I like the under more here because FIU coming off a good shooting night for them, they're very inconsistent on offense. North Texas has a really good defense. They're a well-coached team. I would give North Texas the coaching advantage. I think that they're a solid team at controlling the tempo. They're not one of the slowest teams in the country, but they're not going to play at FIU's tempo. And I think that here you could see a pretty elevated total based on, just FIU's been putting up a lot of points here, or giving up quite a few in some of the other games. They give up 100 to UTSA and 85 to UTEP, which UTEP's offense isn't very good at all. So, I would think that this total will come out at least 150, maybe a little bit above 150. And if that's the case, I would lean toward the under here, maybe even a first half under. We'll have to follow up on that one and see. Maybe that one shows up in the article for Saturday. Maybe we'll have to see what the price is, obviously. Like I say, anytime I talk about this before the price dependent, everything, I'm betting a number. So, but I think that FIU is unlikely to get their tempo that they want in this game. Also, FIU's defense is third in forced turnovers. North Texas has been pretty good at taking care of the ball here in the conference. Not great. So let's see if FIU can force a lot of turnovers here. Like I say, I would think that this could be a game where both offenses would be inefficient.
Well, of course, this is one of those two where if you look at North Texas, 0.735 points per possession in that loss to Florida Atlantic, easily their second worst output of the season. Only that Oklahoma game was worse. A lot of times you like to play against those outliers, look for some regression to the mean. So maybe that adds some more fuel to the North Texas fire here for that one. We go to a major conference game. We don't only talk about under-the-radar types of conferences here. Oklahoma and TCU in what sort of amounts to a bubble battle on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Oklahoma, how far have they fallen? They've lost 5 straight games. Most of them, several of them weren't even very close. They lost by 30 to Baylor at home, lost by 6 on the road to them. They lost by 12 at home to Texas Tech. Relatively close game at West Virginia, and then they did have a really close loss there against Iowa State at home. I'm surprised Oklahoma's fallen off so badly. Their defense is 19th in the country as far as efficiency, according to KenPom. Offensively, they've struggled all year a little bit. They haven't shot the ball all that well to start with, but in the conference, 0.963 points per possession. That will not get it done. Big 12 has some pretty high-scoring games, and if you're averaging that kind of points per possession, you're going to lose quite a bit, and that's what they've been doing. So now they play TCU. TCU, they've lost 3 of their last 5 games. They lost that huge game at home in overtime to Kansas. I think that was a tough loss for them because, they fight back from that, 12-point deficit I think it was in the second half, and come back and actually lead by 4 points with like a minute left in that game. And then TCU ends up losing it in overtime. Certainly a tough way to lose. This is a really important bubble game for both teams. I think that TCU lost at Oklahoma the first time around by 2 points. I think I like TCU in this one. However, I would be a little bit concerned that they come out a little bit sloppy, have a little bit of a hangover from that loss to Kansas. So I think if anything, if Oklahoma's ahead at halftime, I'd probably like the second half taking TCU in this game because I don't trust Oklahoma to finish off the deal, but I'm not sure that TCU will start very well here. So I wonder if there might be some second half value on Horned Frogs.
Well, you look at Oklahoma, and this was the concern that we had a few weeks back. I think when we had a little bit of a futures discussion when we were looking at some of the teams around the country that, Oklahoma did play really good defense, but who is that go-to scorer? Who replaces Trae Young? Who's the guy that you want the ball in his hands late in the game? They haven't really found that guy yet this year, and now we're kind of seeing the effects of that, dropping 5 straight and 7 of their last 9. So definitely an interesting game there, especially to see if Oklahoma can right the ship a little bit. We go back under the radar because it's what we love to do here on the program, and let's talk UNC Greensboro as they take on Wofford here in some SoCon play this weekend.
Yeah, UNC Greensboro comes into this one off a loss at Furman, 67-57 on Thursday night. UNC Greensboro 22-4 on the season. This is a team that I believe was either the favorite or the co-favorite in the before the season started with Wofford, and they just didn't play a tough schedule in the SoCon up until this Thursday game at Furman. They lost to Wofford at home, 72-43. That was their one loss in the conference. That was their one loss since losing to Kentucky on December 1st until they lost on Thursday at Furman. This is a really, really interesting spot here because you've got UNC Greensboro that hasn't been playing a good schedule, but they did lose by 29 points at home to Wofford. Wofford's been really good. I think they're the better team. At least, they've proven it against quality teams. Everybody knows Fletcher McGee is really good for Wofford, but Cameron Jackson has been really, really good in the front court. To me, I think that, this is a better spot for UNCG because they have so much revenge. And I've talked about road revenge and how good of an angle it is. If you lose at home by 29 points, you ought to be amped up for that road game. I mean, if you can't get up for a game like that, it's a real concern. How big of a favorite will Wofford be in this game? I see KenPom has it at 9. I think 9 is pretty high, so I wonder if it'll be that high. If it is, I would certainly lean toward UNC Greensboro here. But it's an interesting handicap, and it's one I wanted to talk about because Wofford's won a couple games in overtime in the conference. They haven't dominated everybody in this conference. They won by 5 at home against Furman. Won in overtime by 1 point on the buzzer beater against Samford at home, and then won in overtime on the road at East Tennessee State. I think Greensboro can give them a game, and you would think that they would be motivated for this game, certainly.
Well, and I mean, losing by 29 in a game played to 59 possessions is kind of insane for UNC Greensboro, but it gives you an idea of just how bad they were offensively. Bart Torvik's got this Wofford -10, which, that's going to be an interesting line to look at, because the idea of a team that's 22-4 getting almost doubles, I mean, it's crazy to think about, quite frankly, and it sort of makes me wonder, not that the public's going to get too involved on a Greensboro versus Wofford game, but if they see a team that's +9 or 10 that's 22-4, I mean, they have to be kind of intrigued, right?
You would think so. I mean, and if you look at UNC Greensboro, they won at East Tennessee State. That's a good win. East Tennessee State's a very quality team. They only lost by 6 on the road against LSU. This is a fairly good UNC Greensboro team. And if you think back to last year, Greensboro is the team that got into the NCAA tournament and almost beat Gonzaga. I mean, this is clearly a good UNC Greensboro team. They have a lot of the same guys back. I think Wofford's a little bit better than them, but I hope this one's 10 points. We'll see what this line comes out at. I think that based on it being a road revenge spot and the way they got beat up, the odds makers might shade it a little bit in that way, but we'll see what happens. I think if it does come out at 10, it won't be at 10 for very long.
Keep that in mind then for the overnights here for our listeners at Bang the Book Radio on a daily basis. All right, we got to talk about this top 5 clash in the SEC, Tennessee and Kentucky. Talked a little bit about Tennessee on yesterday's show, got some critical feedback from one of our listeners. So let's hear your thoughts on the Tennessee Volunteers as they head into this big battle at Rupp Arena.
Well, I mean, Tennessee has played really well. I can't take anything away from this team. I don't really have anything bad to say about this year's Tennessee team. What I will say is Rick Barnes still has to prove it to me in the NCAA tournament. So, am I going to be penciling in Tennessee as my champion in the bracket? No, I won't. I already know that. No matter what their path is in the NCAA tournament, they won't be my champion because, I think there are a lot better coaches out there. Now, what they've done so far this year, like I said, you can't take anything away from that. They lost, one game so far this year. They beat Gonzaga on a neutral. That was a really impressive win. If I remember right, that one was closer to Gonzaga. I know that was a semi-neutral fight, but Tennessee lost to Kansas in overtime in that one loss. They beat Louisville also. They've had a really good season. I think this is a really, really big game for both teams. Kentucky coming off that loss to LSU. Obviously, they were very upset with the way that game ended, maybe rightfully so. And this is a Tennessee team who wants to prove themselves. I think that both teams would be really highly motivated in a game like this. The thing that impresses me the most about Tennessee so far this year is their second in offensive efficiency in the country, 1.241 points per possession. That's tremendous. I'm really surprised they're that good on offense. They're going to get a really good Kentucky defense that is playing excellent here, and 0.896 points per possession allowed. So you've got strength versus strength there. We'll see who wins out. I think Kentucky will be favored in this one, maybe -2.5 or so. That'll be an interesting one though too, because Tennessee has only lost one game all year, but you've got Kentucky, the name brand team that who's the public going to back in this game? I don't know that I know who the public's going to back. If I had to guess, I would guess Kentucky. But, I think there could be some sharps taking Kentucky here, too. So I think Kentucky's gotten the steam several games in a row as far as, they've been bet on pretty heavily by some sharp players. What's going to happen in this game? I don't know. What are your thoughts on who the public and the sharps might like in this one, Adam?
I mean, I think that you're always going to see public bettors take Kentucky at home at a short price. I mean, I know that Tennessee only has the one loss, and Tennessee has looked very, very good, but it's so tantalizing with Kentucky at a small price at home, and especially with the they're going to try to get revenge on Tennessee for what happened in that LSU game, and people are going to really flock to that narrative as well. So this is a game where I don't think the public moves the college basketball market a whole lot. This is one of those spots where they very well could, if sharp money doesn't come in on Tennessee, because the books will be pretty one-sided, I think, with Kentucky public money.
And there's going to be a lot of bets on this game. This will be very, very heavy action in this game. So, it certainly could move the line in this one. And I think the thing I like the most in this game is the under. Kentucky slowed their tempo quite a bit here of late. Haven't played any games over 70 possessions in a really long time. Tennessee is, one of those teams that can play it at either possession, which, at either tempo, I should say. And, that helps them. That's a positive for them, is that they can win at a fast pace. They can win at a slow pace. They haven't played many defenses as good as Kentucky, though. Both of these teams are very good rebounding. I think who wins the rebounding battle will likely be who wins the game. The thing that would concern me if I was backing Tennessee, their single biggest weakness is, defensive rebounding, clearing the defensive boards. Kentucky is third in offensive rebounding in the country. I think Kentucky could get a lot of second chance points in this one. I would lean toward Kentucky. I'll also lean to the under, thinking that this game will play out slower than most people would think, and also Kentucky's defense is a lot better than Tennessee's been facing.
One more game to talk about here for Saturday, and of course we finished under the radar because it's just kind of what we do. It's sort of MO here. We go out to the Big Sky Conference. This isn't a big game by any means, but a very intriguing spot between Montana State and Weber State.
Yeah, I think it is fitting that we go from Kentucky and Tennessee to Montana State and Weber State. We love talking about these under-the-radar games. I know I've gotten quite a bit of feedback from, the daily articles, this show, and the videos and so on, that people do like the under-the-radar talk because they don't get it most other places. So try to focus on as many of those as we can. Weber State is coming off a really, really hard-fought loss to Montana. That was a massive game. Montana was ahead by 20 points in the first half. Montana's the best team in this conference. They come back. They end up losing by 3 points. Then you get Montana State coming in. Montana State's not nearly as good a team. They're 12-12, but they've won 4 straight games. Montana State has road revenge in mind because they lost 93-84 at home to Weber State in a game that was very, very fast tempo. So I would expect a fast pace here and quite a bit of scoring again. Weber State had 27 free throws, and so did Montana State in the first one. Weber made 4 more of them, and then they knocked down 12 three-pointers to only 9 for Montana State. Montana State's a team that can shoot it very well. They're second in the conference in offensive efficiency. They have a star in Tyler Hall. So I think that Montana State sets up as a good situational play here. We'll see what the number is, but can Weber State match the intensity of Montana State here? Because, like I said, Montana State should be very heavily invested in this game. Is Weber State? I don't know the answer to this because Weber State's been a little bit disappointing this year, and now they just lost at home to Montana, their chief rival, the other team that was, Weber State was picked to finish second by most people in this league, and now they've lost, 4 of their last 6 games in the Big Sky. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to bet on Weber State in this spot. I think that Weber State will probably be favored by 6.5 points or so, or maybe 7. I would lean toward the Montana State side here, thinking that this should be a very close game because Weber State is unlikely to be as up for this game as they were for the Montana game, and they were certainly disappointed with the way that one finished.
Yeah, and this is one of those things like I talked about on yesterday's show, and we'll talk about this a lot more as we move forward here. March Madness is a little bit later, so a lot of these teams still have several conference games to go, but you're Weber State, you're in the Big Sky, it is a one-bid league, you know it, you've already lost to your chief rival twice. Your biggest consideration right now is that conference tournament. So if you are laying a big number like they will be here, like they will be against Idaho and Eastern Washington in the month of March, what is your incentive to blow them out? You're more worried about rounding, smoothing out the rough edges for that conference tournament. So your motivations change. What you want to achieve during a game gets a lot different now after losing twice to Montana. Your only goal the rest of the season is to win the conference championship game over Montana, and it should come down to those 2 teams, assuming Weber State's a 2 or a 3 seed. So that's their only goal remaining now. And you've got to keep that in mind if you're handicapping this team when they are laying some sizable point spreads.
Yeah, absolutely. What do these last few regular season games mean to them? Even if they have a low ranking going into that conference tournament, they know they have a chance. Weber State has the second most talent in this league. So, even playing for a seed in the conference tournament, I think it's a question mark whether that would matter as much to them. They just want to get to that point. There's nobody in this league that they couldn't beat. But like you said, they're going to have questionable motivation here coming up. They play here against Montana State, a team that's clearly not as good as them, but a team that should be heavily invested in this game.
Kyle Hunter, professional handicapper over at huntersportspicks.com and daily contributor to BangTheBook.com with that daily article, and then, of course, the situational article every Monday, and then videos for us over on our Bang the Book YouTube page on Wednesday for the Thursday card and Friday for the Saturday card. What's going on over at huntersportspicks.com right now, Kyle?
You can sign up for packages here for the rest of the year for college basketball. Been lowering that price as far as college hoops. As the season gets farther along, there's less games left, so I'll lower that price as we go. I'm going to have some specials coming out here in the next few days. I'll be introducing those first to the newsletter subscribers. So if you haven't already subscribed to the newsletter at huntersportspicks.com, it's free to sign up. You'll get some free picks, free contests for cash prizes or premium plays. So definitely sign up there if you haven't already as well.
Kyle Hunter, again, huntersportspicks.com, bangthebook.com, and, hey, it's going to be a quick weekend here. We'll be right back on the air again on Monday. So looking forward to it, man. Have a nice weekend, and we'll talk to you again Monday.
All right, you too. Thanks, man.